Hello everyone. Welcome to Woolen Spinning. My name is Rachel. This is episode 302. I want to welcome you to this place. Thank you for being here. It is Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. We have had a very eventful couple of weeks, so I hope that wherever you are, that things are nice and calm and nice and lovely and not too crazy. Although I know it's election day in the States, so I hope that people are staying sane and that you are all okay. We had a huge windstorm yesterday here on the south coast of British Columbia. I'm coming to you from just outside of Vancouver, British Columbia in Canada. And it's beautiful and clear out there now, but we have had really spotty internet coverage since yesterday evening. So if things start to crap out and the stream is delayed and things are spooling and so on and so forth, it's probably not you, it's probably me. And I will just record the podcast and I'll upload it later today because I'm not going to, go back and forth with live stream links and whatnot. It can just get a bit too messy. So I'm just putting that out there now so that you guys know what's going on. Welcome to Amanda and Deidre. Christine is here. Dagmar, Susan, good to see you. It's nice to have you back. Maria, Tessa, Dana, Lisa, Eliane is here. Eveline, it's so good to see you guys. So thank you so much for being here. I'm sure there are more. You guys just haven't had a chance to say hello in the chat yet. Before I forget, I am wearing the Pink Velvet by Andrea Mowry. I knit this back in 2019 while we were on our trip up to Whitehorse, Yukon. And oh my goodness, I have a huge hole in the sweater. I just looked down and I saw it. Oh, I'm gonna have to darn that later. Okay, I can't pull on it anymore. It's actually just knit out of Jameson's 2-ply Spindrift, and it was in like a teal blue and then a coral. And actually I've had to darn this sweater a lot over the years. I've worn it a lot. The moths got to it a few years ago, but only like very, very minor damage, just little pantry moths, and I caught it right away. But I've had to darn it several times. So I love this sweater. I will absolutely make it again. What I need to do is spin for it. This sweater has kind of been through the wars and I really love it. So yeah, we have a couple of things going on in the community and lots of things to talk about. So why don't we do the intro credits first and then we'll get into all of that right after. Eveline says that sweater still looks so good. Thank you so much. I've really looked after it, other than it developing holes and whatnot. It really breaks quite quickly and quite easily, and I could see how the moths got to it, and they would have just decimated the sweater, but it didn't take much for them to do damage to the sweater, if that makes sense. Yes, Fionn, you have to be very careful with those pantry moths. They are tiny and they are hard to get rid of. Pay attention because they will burrow into your stuff. So just beware. But this sweater is worn really super well considering it's 5 years old, and I've actually worn it a lot. It's probably one of my most worn knits like ever, which is saying something. It's very cool. All right. Before I switch to the other screen, we actually have a giveaway. Which is so lovely. It was offered by Eliane, who is in Norway. She's in the chat today. She sent these lovely packages. I'm just going to get rid of the second camera here. You guys have a teaser of what's to come today, but I'm just going to put it aside for just a moment. She sent 2 of these lovely, lovely bags, one for you guys and one for me. So thank you, Eliane. I was looking through this on the weekend. I'm going to probably not say the name correctly, but there is 100 grams of gray. Is it Tronder? How do you say it, Eliane? Is there a way that you can type in the chat the how you pronounce it? Tronder. It's wool from Norway, and there's this dark gray. There's 100 grams of that for somebody, and there's some light gray. So you can see when you put them, I'm trying not to crinkle too much, but if you put them next to each other, you can see how much darker this one is. Just beautiful. This will make, oh, I was thinking about spinning mine. I'm going to put mine aside for right now, just because we've got some other stuff going on in the community that I need to spin first. But I was actually thinking about spinning, because it's 200 grams total of wool for someone. I was thinking about spinning mine the dark wool to one bobbin and the lighter wool to the other bobbin, and plying them, because I think that would just create such a lovely neutral marl. I think it would just be beautiful. I'm really excited to try this. So we will do it as somebody in our community for somebody to win, and I'll mail it out to you. So you're gonna, rather than doing it in the live chat, I want you guys to answer in the comments for the podcast. So those of you who are watching live right now, if it's not convenient to answer it right now, just go in as soon as the podcast is over and leave a comment. But what I want to hear about, Rebecca and I recorded Woolen Spinning Radio for December because we were both feeling really inspired. And what the Woolen Spinning Radio episode will be about, and it'll be released on December 1st, is the how and the why of big projects. So big project spins. And Rebecca sort of did like an interview of me. And so I wanted to know, how do you dig into those longer spins? What keeps you going? Why do you do them? So ponder that and then leave a comment down below. Not in the live chat, I won't see it later. Leave a comment down below and let me know, how do you dig into those bigger spins? What keeps you going with the bigger spins, and why do you do them? And I'm looking for more than just I want the yardage. And then we'll draw a winner the first episode in December. So whatever episode that is, it'll be December 3rd. We'll do the giveaway. So it gives you guys a month, because people don't necessarily watch the podcast right away. So Eliane says that the OE is pronounced like in rough. Okay, so rough. So trunder, would that be how you would spell it, or how you would say it? Yeah, very cool. Thank you, Eliane, from the bottom of my heart for that. It's really fun to be able to give stuff away on the podcast, and it's really fun to be able to share wools from other parts of the world. That's really, really wonderful. So have a go in the comments. Caprice has a great point. She says, looking forward to seeing everyone's answers to that, because as someone who has not yet done a sweater spin, it is very daunting. So Caprice, comment in, for those of you who haven't done these bigger spins yet, these multi-thousand-yard spins, comment why you haven't yet. What's the roadblock? I know you said it's very daunting. What about the process is daunting? I want to know more, and we can talk about it more on the podcast in the coming months, and hopefully lessen some of that overwhelm for you guys, because I know you're not the only one, Caprice. There's many people that feel the way you feel. All right, let's hop on over. Before I move on, I wanted to make a really quick mention. Woolen Spinning Radio this month for November was a conversation between Rebecca and Becca, who's at Bethy40 on the Slack channel. Those of you who've been around for a while know who Becca is. She's a very integral part of our community. She runs book club. She's been working on her certificate of excellence in hand spinning for the last 4 years. And so her and Rebecca sat down last week and had a conversation about that. So have a look everywhere that you catch your audio podcasts: Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, which doesn't technically exist anymore, iTunes, all the different places, and have a look and see if you can find, and have a listen to Woolen Spinning Radio. And the most recent episode is that spinning certificates discussion. And I had an appointment that came up at the last minute that I had to attend. And I messaged both of them. I'm like, I am so sorry. Like, I'm not going to be able to be there. And they were laughing that it took 2 of them to replace one of me. They were being so sweet about it, and they jumped on anyhow, and they had a great time and a really great discussion. So definitely have a listen to that episode with Rebecca and Becca. yeah, I think that's it for that that piece of it. So let's move on over. We've got our year of yarn structure going on right now. We're currently in yarn structure part 3 of our 2-year-long study. The Wool Circle will be streaming next Tuesday, and Rebecca will be introducing cabled yarns. For those who are interested in learning about that, you can hop on over to patreon.com/woolenspinning to learn more about joining the Wool Circle tier. There is a 7-day free trial for those who want to give it a try and see what it's all about. Spinning Staples is meeting on the 2nd and the 4th Thursday. That's the dedicated book group. You guys will be meeting next week, Thursday the 14th, with Rebecca. If I don't get a chance to send out the reminder, I'm hoping to get it out to you guys on Tuesday next week. Just know that you are meeting next Thursday. There's a couple of things going on next week that's going to pull me away from being able to do all of this, and so just know that you are meeting next Thursday. And then queries, we met this past Saturday, and we're meeting again on the 16th to continue our explorations of drum carding, which is really cool. I think that's it for, if you guys are curious about the syllabus and want to look up the syllabus that we're currently working from and what's coming up with all of that, here is the sharing link for the Google Doc that you guys can have a look at. Because that's really important to know what's coming. We're doing cabled yarns this month. We're taking a little bit of a break in December so that people can catch up. And then in January, we'll be looking at crepe yarns. And we're going to continue this momentum of looking at yarn structure for the foreseeable future. We have it scheduled until about April, May-ish. And that is partially because of the breed blends and color study coming up with Megan at Bramble Ridge, which I'll talk about in just a minute. If you are part of the Slack channel, I have gotten Google Calendar working again, so there should be the automatic stuff. The links and everything should be populating again. I was able to get that working this morning. On a whim, I pressed a button and I think it's working. So, because there was a reminder this morning for the live stream. So I think that fingers crossed, I think it's working again. So Spin Group, those Zoom links come up just before Spin Group starts on Tuesday and Thursday morning. It's not British summertime anymore. It is Greenwich Mean Time. I should change that because the clocks have changed. We have changed as well in the Northern Hemisphere as well. So in North America. So we're all changed now. We've all fallen back. We're all back on 8-hour time differences between us and the UK and 9 hours with mainland Europe. And then Fiber Prep Group, you guys are meeting on Fridays. I haven't been able to be there for the last number of Fridays because of conflicts that we've had in our like family unit. But you guys meet and alternate with Fiber Prep and Weaving Group on Fridays. Book Club. Rebecca's been trying to figure out a good time to meet, when to meet, what our next book should be. Let me know. Please head into the #books channel on Slack to get to put in your thoughts about all of that. Becca's been trying to figure out how to move forward with Book Club. So let us know. As you guys know, I've been talking about this. I talked about this extensively last episode. Megan is starting to look in the thread about the theme Deep Winter. If you guys have some photos to add to Megan's inspiration board as she builds the colorways that'll be coming in the new year for our breed blend and color study, please jump into the Ravelry group and pop in with all of your thoughts and ideas, your photos mostly. I've just put the link in the live chat and you guys can access that. There will be lots of information coming at the beginning of January. Do not worry. If you want to participate, you will not miss out. There will be lots of time. No worries. It'll be super calm and no problems. There won't be any racing to get product or anything like that. So we'll make sure that you guys have all the information that you need at the beginning of January, and then we can go from there. And the idea with this study, and I talked about this last episode, is to take all of our learning from the yarn structure stuff that we've been working on and to apply it to this study. So, hopefully people will feel confident to choose some of these yarn structures and delve into them on the blend that Megan has made for us, as well as play with the colors that she's putting together for us. So I'm really excited for those who haven't been able to participate in Breed and Color Study previously, especially those who've worked their way through old episodes and you watched me and Katrina, mostly me if it's the live stream, but talking about all the Breed and Color Studies and not having been able to participate. And now, you know, we're here again and you guys will finally have a chance to participate. So I know Eveline is excited, Paulina is excited. It's just really nice for those of you who didn't get a chance to participate before to participate now. So I'm excited to be able to offer that to you guys. All right, I have one last very important announcement. There will be another post about this coming out tonight into tomorrow, Wednesday, so you will see it in your email inbox. So those of you who are watching this later, you probably have already learned about this because you've already seen the email that'll come out tonight at 2 a.m. Pacific on Wednesday morning. I tend to schedule everything for 2 a.m. Pacific because then those of you who are in the Eastern time zones wake up to the post at Rachel, at 5 a.m. And then those of you who are in Europe, it's not too far into your day. And same with those who are down under. You guys kind of still catch things like at roughly, you know, a good time that you get to see stuff in a relatively timely manner. So Rebecca and I were trying to figure out what would be a really good time for me to sort of take a little bit of time off. In the past, I've taken the latter half of August, the latter half of December, and the latter half of March, where I just take one live stream off, and it gives me kind of a couple of weeks to just take a little bit of a break from the just the routine, just all the things that are associated with putting together the live stream every 2 weeks. Because the weeks where there's 5 Tuesdays, they in the calendar year, they only happen a couple of times. So long story short, we thought November would be a really good time for me to take sort of an extended break, because it's American Thanksgiving, so it tends to be quite quiet in our community anyways. People are gathering with friends and family at this time of year. People have time off. They're catching up with old content and catching up with stuff that's happened over the last number of months that they've gotten kind of behind on because of the busyness of the fall. So we just sort of thought this was a really great time for me to be able to step back for a couple weeks and just have some quiet and rest and recoup. Especially because this fall has been a real like hit the ground running kind of a fall. There's been a lot going on. So I am still available for like the technical stuff. If you run into problems with Patreon, if you are having difficulty with anything technical, don't hesitate to reach out either on the Slack channel or through Patreon. Everything else that's kind of more just, you know, general inquiries, anything that you're wondering about can be directed through Rebecca. So at RebbyJ on the Slack channel. And there are so many capable people in our community that can take the lead, and you can reach out to them as well. And if they're not certain, they'll just reach out to me. It's not a big deal at all. So I will be back at the beginning of December with the regular routine of the live stream and whatnot. Episode 303, Rebecca will be here. So in this spot in 2 weeks will be Rebecca, and she's going to take the live stream. It will be pre-recorded, but she will be doing the live stream, and you guys will get to have a different podcast host, which is really cool. So there won't be a break in terms of like the live stream every Tuesday, but you get a break from me. So I think that'll be really fun. I'm looking forward to Rebecca being able to take the driver's seat for a couple of weeks. So that'll be really fun. Thank you for your support. I really appreciate it. It's time for me to take a little bit of a break, and having Rebecca on board means that I can. Oh, right. Yes. Thank you, Deirdre. Thank you, Fionn. Yeah. And Rebecca's got some fun stuff planned for you guys, so that'll be really cool because she'll be doing the wool circle, but then also the live stream. So that'll be really neat. All right. We had a really great question in the Slack channel this past week from Annie, and I don't want to spend too much time on this just because this is going to escalate into a huge rabbit hole. But this is a question that's been asked quite a few times over the last probably the last couple of years. It's come up again and again and again. And I thought it was really great to be able to spend a couple of minutes on this question, especially because I know that you guys in the chat will be able to chime in with your thoughts as well. Haha, Diane. She said, because we need a break from you. Har har. So I really, really like this question. So I will, let's just do this and then I can change my screens. So I have to tell you guys, as I'm getting ready with the screens, we played a practical joke on my mom last week for Halloween because I wasn't sure if we were going to see her on Halloween proper. And the kids James had bought these eyeballs, and he got them at the Halloween store, and they were like a couple of dollars, and there was like 12 of them. Anyways, we snuck into my mom's house, and last week was like a truly awful week. Like, it was just truly awful. And we snuck, and so we were just looking for, like, we just wanted to have some fun, me and the kids, and just kind of lighten the mood a little bit. And we snuck into my mom's house, and when she was out at an eye doctor appointment, and which ended up being really kismet because of what we did. But the kids had written her a Halloween card, and they signed it from, they said, I see you, and then they wrote Happy Halloween from Anonymous. And then they hid throughout her house the 12 eyeballs. And so over the last week, she's been finding these eyeballs everywhere. It's been hilarious. So she's like got this whole thing about how there's like spooks in her house, and the spooks are leaving their eyeballs, and they needed the eye doctor appointment more than she did. And oh my gosh, it's ended up being hilarious. Sorry, that was a bit of a side quest, but just so funny. All right, so Annie had this great question. I'm going to read what she wrote on the Slack channel. This is a summary of what she wrote, and then please feel free to chime in with your thoughts in chat. But because there were lots of thoughts that were shared on the Slack channel as well. So basically, Annie says, fleece question: how do you know if there's lanolin left in your fleece? And if there is, how do you get it out? I washed a Shetland fleece over the weekend. I spun a sample today, and it left my spindle a bit tacky, and it feels sticky to draft. My hands were a bit shiny afterwards as well. I don't have much experience with fiber processing, so I'm not sure what is normal and what is not. If I do need to rescour, how would I go about doing it? I used 1 tablespoon of power scour per bucket, 2 scours, and then 3 rinses. The water seemed pretty clear after the last rinse. Do I wash the whole 3 pounds again, or do I just do a half a pound and see how it goes? So this was such a great question, because this is something that comes up all the time. And if you guys remember back when I pulled out my Rideau Arcott Charolais fiber from the stash, it had been in my stash for 5 years, and it had been sitting there, and pulling it out and starting to spin it, it just felt a bit tacky. It didn't feel like it was fully clean. And theoretically, if there was lanolin in there, it would have been sitting in there in the stash for about 5 years. So what I did in that situation was, instead of that's not the right word. Instead of waffling about whether or not to try rewashing, I just rewashed it. And what I did was I made sure I measured the temperature of my water. I always measure the temperature of my water now. The last few fleeces that I've washed, I've made sure that the tap water coming out really is 140 degrees. Because what was happening previously was I would start to fill the bucket before the water actually got to 140. So the resulting water in my bucket wasn't actually 140 degrees. And so even though we have our temperature on our hot water set to 140, and so we have a tankless system, so it takes a few minutes for the water to get up to temperature. So I've started measuring the temperature of the water. And from there, I added 2 tablespoons of power scour to that first scour. And then I went ahead and did a second scour after that. Each time I left the wool in there, each pound, I do a pound at a time. I had 3 buckets going. That spin ended up only being just over a pound anyways. So I think I actually did put it all into 1 scour. I think I put it into 1 lingerie bag, big like laundry bag. It's one of the really big ones. I think I put it all in because it ended up being only about 580 grams of wool. And then I added 2 tablespoons that first scour, 1 tablespoon the second scour, and then I rinsed it 3 times. The thing is that even if you get it to 140 degrees and you know that your water is hot enough, sometimes that's still not hot enough. Sometimes you do need to add a kettle full of boiling water. Sometimes you don't. And so one of the things that we were talking about in the Slack channel was, first of all, you've got to keep notes. You need to know how hot your water was so that if you need to change something, you know where to start with your water. You need to, Annie did the right thing here where she kept track of how many tablespoons she had added per she says per bucket, but I'm assuming that she measured the wool and measured out a pound and did 1 tablespoon per pound of wool. So that 1 tablespoon for that first scour might not have been enough. You might have needed a second tablespoon. And then 3 rinses. One of the things that came up in the Slack channel was sometimes just because the water's running clear after that 3rd rinse does not mean that it's clean. It doesn't mean that the lanolin's all out. If the water's not hot enough, there could still be lanolin on the wool itself and it didn't dissolve all of it and get it off. So keep really good notes. Make sure that you know what you've done. Get a thermometer and check the temperature of your water. And if you're not sure, rewash it. It doesn't take that long to get it washed. And one of the things that has been a really big game changer for me is using the spin cycle on my washing machine to spin out that excess water after that final rinse. And getting the wool like quite dry in that 8-minute spin cycle. Most machines have some sort of a spin and drain cycle where there's no water and it'll just spin it out, and that makes a huge difference if you don't have a spin dryer, which I think probably the majority of us don't have a spin dryer. That's like a separate machine and a separate piece. I don't know anybody in real life here that has a spin dryer, but I do know people in our community that have spin dryers. So if you have a washing machine and you can do a spin and drain cycle, that'll get your wool, really, really well, not dry, but like it just gets all that excess water out of there. And then you can reassess relatively quickly whether or not it's coming out clean. If you do a pound at a time, and you just do 1 pound and you see if it's cleaner and if it's working, then you can do your other 2 pounds. You don't have to do it all in one fell swoop. You're not going to put all 3 pounds in one bucket anyways. So that's a really good, important, thing. Christine has a really good point. She says, is it better to under or over scour? I think that's actually a really good question. I've had a few processed roving type preparations over the years, particularly when I first came back to spinning, sort of circa 2013, 2014, when I had purchased stuff that was over scoured and it was really, really, really dry and almost a bit brittle. And, so you don't want to push it so far that you're actually damaging the wool. And that's where I really like what Annie has written in her question here, is just being cautious. Should I rewash it? How many times should I rewash it? And just being really taking good notes and keeping track. Doing another scour and a couple of rinses and throwing it through a spin and drain cycle is probably going to be enough. That was enough for my Rideau Arcott Charolais cross. With these sort of medium-ish wools, that's generally enough, as long as they're not super dirty. This fleece in the photo here, it just cycled, but the fleece it doesn't look like there's a lot of VM in it. It doesn't look like there's a lot of dust and dirt. Now you're just looking at just getting that lanolin out of there. And I think you'll have a much nicer spin experience if you take the time to rescour. With my Rideau Arcott, I actually only ended up washing it once. I did 2 tablespoons per pound. I did 2 tablespoons because it was just over a pound. I don't know if I would have if it was under a pound, but I knew that it still had that lanolin in there, and I made sure that the water was the full 140 degrees. So Kaylee says she uses water that's closer to 170, and I know I had to do that with I haven't started spinning it yet, so I haven't shared it on the podcast, but I do have a CVM from Lynn Anderson of West Coast Color that I'm hoping to get into next year to actually start processing it and spinning it. I went close to 170 and added that boiling water to it because it was a ram's fleece and it was just really, really stinky more than anything. It wasn't dirty, it had that smell to it, and I wanted to make sure that it was really clean. So Annie, I hope that gets you going and that helps you on your journey. All right, let's talk about spinning, and we will get into a finished spin, which I am so excited to share with you. I noticed Eve made a really interesting comment in the chat just now. She says a front loader machine, it may felt your wool. When I use the spin and drain cycle on my front loader, I have a Mila. I've never ever had that happen. I only use the spin and drain though. There's no water. It's just spinning it for 8 minutes, and I've never had an issue at all. All right, let's talk. I've got 2 spins actually to share with you, and I'm going to move this out of the way for just a minute because we'll talk about, actually, no, you know what? Let's talk about this first. I'm just going to hold it here. So this is from my dear friend Melissa of Melly Knits. This is her Sommelier Guts Club. So this is Sommelier Guts 1. It's from October. She told me I was allowed to talk about it. It is 60 grams of CVM from Sonia Gregg here in British Columbia. It's 40 grams of Dulce, which is that's the sheep's name, Gulf Coast native from Oregon, from Roy Bob's farm, and then 15 grams of Bombeck silk. And this is what the bat looks like. I did not card up this bat. When you get guts from Melly, she sends you the pieces. She had already carded this, so she gave me the actual carded bat that she had made that she was then gonna spin. The reason is because she needed me to do a little bit of spinning for her. So let me share this with you. This is done. This is the yarn that came out of this. So the bat, one of the things that when she asked me to spin this up for her, for the sample for her to keep, one of the things that I noticed in the bat was just how springy and squishy it is. It has amazing bulk. So if you look at the bat, if I squish it down, it just comes right back up. It just has amazing bulk and is squishy and it a little bit toothy. It's definitely like medium wools in here. The Gulf Coast native for sure. And it's just got this lovely bounce and spring to it. And for me, still next to the Skin Soft for sure. Anyhow, I took the 30 grams off the side of the bat that she needed me to spin for her. And I literally took that 30 grams, I broke it into 4 lengths of fiber. I pre-drafted them quite well, and then I wound them up into little nests, and I just started spinning. And accidentally, like, it really was an accident because I meant to spin to 2 bobbins just for speed, wind each of them off separately. So spin 1 bobbin, wind it off, spin 1 bobbin, wind it off, and then ply them together. I just kept spinning. I lost track of the how many nests I was at for the 4 nests. And I ended up doing a center pull ball, which I didn't intend to do in the first place. I wanted to do it kind of properly and do 2 bobbins and spin from the first spun end. However, in the end, because this is so airy and springy and the fibers are so, there's so much air in there, and it's got a real woolen feel to it rather than being, even though I spun it continuous back and I smoothed the fibers slightly, it still came out like a woolen yarn that it didn't matter. Doing a center pull ball, spinning from the first spun end to ply plying backwards and just doing 2 bobbins and then plying off those, none of it would have mattered. It ended up resulting in just this really bouncy, springy, lovely yarn. And for me, it's next to the Skin Soft. It feels a lot like the Jamieson's. That's actually how to me it ended up feeling. This would knit up into just a lovely, airy, warm toque. So that was this. That was only 2 passes on the drum carder. Melly told me when Melissa gave me this and asked me if I could do the sample for her. She said she'd only run it through her carder twice, and if I wanted to, I could run it through a 3rd time, but I didn't need to. It's just beautiful to spin. So yeah, if you guys have your guts clubs, like all the different ones, I know Dania has a subscription. Fionn has a subscription. They're just really fun. So it was neat that Melissa asked me if I could do a couple of spins for her, because it's just fun for me to spin up a little sample, and then I'll get the rest of it spun probably later this year. All right, final finished yarn. My Rideau Arcott is done. It is done. So what I ended up with, these are all of the skeins of finished yarn. And this one here is actually, if you can see, it's actually slightly different in color from the other ones. This is the one that I did all the spinning before I scoured everything. So this skein is a little bit different from the rest. And all I'm going to do is I'll scour it now. I just haven't done it yet. And then it'll come out to be the same color as the other ones. It just needs a little bit of a, one more wash is what it needs. Finished yardage, I ended up with 1,600 yards of yarn, 580-ish grams. All of the yarn together, these are pretty dense skeins, like they're pretty, each of them is about 300 yards. And for those who haven't heard me talk about this fleece and wax poetic about it for the last umpteen million months, this is the original lock. So this is what the locks of this, oh, it's going to blow out. Sorry, guys. This is what the original locks look like from the Rideau Arcott Charolais blend. So you can see you've got the length there, rather than the short staple of a Charolais. You've got the crimp of the Charolais though. Like look at all that fine toothpick, fine kind of crimp, just so fine. And then really easy to get the tips open, because that's what the tips ended up looking like after washing. The butts were really easy to open up. They ended up being really easy. And yeah, just a really bouncy, springy, really nice fleece. So this will get put away to keep for my like record keeping. I'll put a label in here and keep it all together. And this is the final yarn. So one of the things over the last couple of weeks, this is what happens when we don't have a podcast for 3 weeks. This is what gets finished. I just sat and I spun and I spun and I spun and I spun. So not last week, but the week before, the kids had a mountain of schoolwork. And I was just sitting at the table helping them. I was spinning singles, and you know, when they needed me, I was available. And so I took one of the skeins that had been washed and finished already. It was one of these ones that's quite white. I put it on my umbrella swift and I just started knitting off of it. And so I knit a swatch. This is 4mm needles, and the gauge ended up being 21 stitches over 4 inches, and on 4mm needles. And the swatch, I'll just pop into the other camera for a minute. The swatch is really lovely. It's a round 4-ply yarn for those who haven't heard me wax poetic about this spin forever. This is a 4-ply yarn, continuous backward draft with smoothing, very smooth spinning. Carded on my carders. I put the fiber through 3 times to make bats, but then the 4th pass I put on, I made just nests of fibers. I don't know if I have any photos ready for you guys. Oh yes, I made these. So 4 passes through the carder. As I spun, I kept rewinding the singles, so I had multiple of these weaving bobbins. Just kept rewinding and clearing off my bobbin. If I got sick of spinning the singles, I would rewind them. And then I pulled off a couple of these big skeins. So while I was still spinning singles, to continue to be able to continue to ply, I was sitting there knitting this little swatch, and I thought, you know, I love the color of this, but I would also really like to see what I can get for color. You know, I blended the 15% Tussa Silk in, and you know, I thought, like, what could I do in terms of like keeping myself motivated to like really keep going and to get this spin done, because I was starting to feel a bit bogged down with it. And thank you, Diane. She says, oh my goodness, that yarn is amazing. Thank you. So what I ended up doing, I'm going to change cameras again for just a minute. What I ended up doing was I took to my dye pots, and I decided, this is where my confidence is increasing with dyeing. It's not super high, but I'm getting there. What I did was, and I need to make sure that these are in order. Skein number 2, 3, 1. Okay, let me just put them in order really quickly. I wasn't really going for any color like in particular, but I did kind of start with the greens and the khaki greens and sort of these muddy yellows, mostly just because that was what I already had for dye stock. And so I just thought I'll start somewhere. So what I did was I looked through all of those samples that I had done back in the summer, and I looked through some of the skeins that I had done and some of the color combinations that I'd really liked that were using cobalt blue and yellow for my base, like for my dye stock. And so I started off with skein number 1, and I took meticulous notes. Normally I would do this in a notebook and I would write way more, but because I was constantly being pulled to help the kids, I made do. Make do and continue dying. That should be a t-shirt. So skein number 1 I called khaki green, even though it actually came out a little bit more evergreen, so I'm probably going to change that. But I used 65% yellow, and then 30% cobalt and 5% brown, and that's what gave me skein number 1. So then I decided, okay, I really, really like that color. It's a little bit primary, a little bit, and I wanted to shift it slightly, but I only wanted to change one thing. So for skein number 2, I increased the yellow and made it 80%, which brought the cobalt in half to 15%, but I kept the brown at 5%. So I only changed one thing. I mean, technically 2 things got changed, but the key was to only change the yellow. Do you know what I mean? So that was skein number 2. So then I was like, oh, I really like that. So then skein number 3, I changed the brown to black. So this is the results. So 80% yellow, 15% cobalt blue, and then 5% black. So that's these two, the yellow and the cobalt, are the same, but one is black and one is brown. And you can see how much colder the green became versus how much warmer the brown, the 5% brown, gave us. I really like these two, and they still coordinate, but they are slightly different. And with the black versus the brown in this one, with the higher percentage of the blue, this sort of gave it, they're just different enough that they look like they go together, but they don't look exactly the same. This one still came out a bit more blue, a bit darker because of that cobalt. I can't wait for Dion. She's in Japan right now. I can't wait for her to go back and watch this and give me a whole bunch of feedback, because she'll have lots to say, and I'm super excited to hear it. Okay, and then skein number 4, I took out the blue. So I took out the blue, and I only did 90% yellow, but 10% black. So I changed quite a bit in this one. And that was mostly because I wanted to try to get away from these kind of bluey greens. I wanted to get a little bit more like a khaki kind of yellow, and this reads quite yellow in real life. On the camera it's reading a lime green, but it's actually more yellow, kind of more grello, and I really liked that. So then I took out the yellow that I was using and I replaced it with golden yellow, which I think is one of Dion's favorites, and this came out quite brown. It's reading grello on your screen and kind of a mustard yellow, but it's actually very it's actually quite brown. And then I don't love the golden yellow. It's very saturated. It's quite bright. So I went back to regular yellow for skein number 6. And this one is actually 80% yellow, 5% cobalt. This is my favorite one. And then 15% brown. So I changed the most in this one because I put the cobalt back in and I changed back to brown. And I increased the brown, but I really like how this came out. It's a really lovely color, and I think probably in the final sweater, this will be one of the colors. So what it got me thinking about was I've got this huge finished spin. I'm really excited about this yarn because I loved knitting with it. And so what I ended up kind of landing on is actually that I probably will choose a sweater, and actually I'm eyeing one by Trin Annalie that she just did a testing call for, that has multiple colors in it. So once the pattern's released, I'm going to have a look at the gauge and look at the colors that, the yardage for the colors, and do a little bit more dyeing. I have 1,600 yards to play with. I've got more than enough yarn, and I will play with the colors a little bit more and see if I can get some other colors that I really super like. The sweater has purple in it as one of the colors in the color work that I really, really liked. My depth of shade, Kaylee, was 1%. So it was quite saturated. Yeah, yeah, with the tussa silk, like you can see how it just creates this really, really beautiful yarn, because of course it takes the dye slightly differently in different places, so it just gives so much character and a little bit more texture, a little bit more depth, a little bit more nuance. You can really see it in this one here, how that the silk and the Rideau Arcott takes the dye slightly differently. It's well blended, so it doesn't hit you over the head, but it's just, yeah, it's really, really pretty. So very happy with that. Doing these samples, they're each 10 yards. They were each 3.2 grams. Really kept the momentum going with finishing off and spinning the singles. I was really, really, really happy with that. If there are any questions, I will answer them. Yeah, Dana says the dyed samples are so pretty. It just makes you appreciate the spun yarn even more when you get results like this. Like, it just makes me feel even more excited about things. Yeah, the celery color makes me happy. This one here is so, so, so pretty. This one is too, but the camera's not doing it justice. Has a lot of depth. This one's really, really pretty. I called this one, I gave them all names. Oh, I didn't give that one a name. I'll have to come up with something. Anyhow, yeah, it was just really fun in the midst of some very challenging things. It was really, really fun to do. All right, let's talk about my spinning next, because I do have a few. I did put something on the wheel after finishing that Rideau Arcott. That's totally how I felt, Diane. I had these in my hand afterwards, and I was photographing them, and I was looking at them, and it's just exactly the same thing that happened to me after I finished the color wheel dyeing that I did back in the summer, where I was like holding them and I was like, I did this! Like, it's this like bouquet of mini skeins, and I did that. Like, it just, oh, there's just nothing like it. It's so great. I wanted to share with you this spin that I just started. It's from Bramble Ridge, and I had this in my stash. It's Haunui, and I haven't actually spun Haunui before, even though a lot of people in our community have. So Megan had these two braids. It was quite a long time ago. I want to say like back last winter. And one of them is called Fun House, which is this one right here with those magenta pinks and that dark kind of purple grape kind of color. And then on the far side there, and actually you can see the label, so it's pretty self-explanatory. The other one is called Mushroom Hunt, and I really liked that one. I know those of you who know my color preferences know that I really love those colors. So when I saw these two braids, I actually, my initial plan was to put them together, spin one to one bobbin, one to the other bobbin, and then apply them together. Now that I've gotten into the actual spinning itself, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm kind of leaning towards a center pull ball for both of them, and then using them together or separately. I'm not sure I'm quite as sold on putting them together. I'm really enjoying spinning it. The Haunui is just beautiful to spin. It's a New Zealand wool. It's really lovely. One of the things that I wanted to mention though was, if you'll notice here, I split the first braid. I did Fun House first because I know Mushroom Hunt I just love that colorway. Even though Fun House has funner colors, I know funner isn't a word, but you know what I mean. Mushroom Hunt is sort of more my color aesthetic. But I split the braid into 5, so I just kept splitting it lengthwise. I split it into 5, and then what I did was I put it through, even though it was really light and airy already, and Megan does a beautiful job with dyeing her braids, I still dizzed it off the hand cards to get lots of color blending between the transitions of color. And if you guys haven't done that dizzing off a hand card before, and that's something new to you, we talked about it extensively in previous podcast episodes, but there is a free tutorial on the School of Sweet Georgia, and I've just put the link in the live chat for you guys. But this has been a really fun spin because it's a bit of a palette cleanser. It is 200 grams, like it's not nothing, but it's been spinning up pretty quickly on my Magicraft Rose. I put it on the fastest ratio that I have access to, which is about 27 to 1, 28 to 1. And I've just been like cranking through. So this is the third nest of dizzed roving, dizzed top, whatever you want to call it. And then I've got 2 more to spin for Fun House, and that colorway will be done. And then what I'm going to do, I'm actually not going to rewind the bobbins. I'm going to take that bobbin and put it to the side because if I'm going to do a center pull ball, it doesn't need to be rewound. I can just wind a center pull ball. If I decide to ply it with Funhouse like I was originally planning on doing, then I will rewind it. So I'm just going to put the bobbin off to the side, spin Mushroom Hunt, and then I'll go from there. So yeah. Oh, that's wonderful, Dana. I hope that you do that. She said, I want to go back and do what you did with making dies and keep a log of how to repeat the colors. Thank you. Because yeah, I wish, you know what I wish, and I know you can't sort of turn back time, but I do kind of wish that I had tried sooner. I don't think I had the emotional bandwidth, the mental bandwidth to be able to do it sooner, but I wish I had. Because it's not as intimidating as you would think, and I just, many people said that to me, but I just wasn't ready. And yeah, it's you know, it is intimidating to do that. And I learned so much from doing those color triangles and the color wheel and dyeing all of that. That really kind of got me going. I'm not at the point where I can make these really complex colors just yet, but I'll get there. I will get there. So it just is going to take time. And it's not my full-time job to dye. I think, you know, your learning curve is still quite steep, but if you're doing this full-time, you know, you do learn really quickly from those mistakes that you make because you're doing it all day, every day. So I have to be patient with myself as well. So that's what I'm spinning. You know, pretty tame. And I'm enjoying that. I'm really enjoying it. I have another sample spin that Melissa asked me to do that I'll whip up in the next week or two, and I'll share that with you guys as soon as I can. And then we've got Breed Blends and Color. I've got the undyed fiber from Megan already, and I mailed half of it to Rebecca up in Rankin Inlet. She should get it in the next day or two. And so I'll be playing around with that in the background, and I won't be able to share too much about that just yet. I'll share black and white photos, but I won't be able to share too much about that until we really get up and running with that in January. How long do dye stocks last? I think Felicia says on the School of Sweet Georgia in the Dyeing Intentional Color, I feel like she says like 4 to 6 weeks, maximum 2 months. Store them in a cool, dark place. Does that sound right? Is Dorothy here? She would know. I know Dorothy was out and about this morning. Yeah, I know I'm such a tease, Christine. I'm so sorry. I don't mean to be. I really honestly don't mean to be. So knitting. Let's talk about knitting. All right. I don't have a lot to share with knitting because I haven't been doing a ton of knitting. I know, Paulina, I know, sabbatical. I know. I'm gonna, it'll depend on how much I can do, because of some things going on in the background. I don't know how much I'll have a chance to work on stuff, while I'm on sabbatical. I'm really honestly not sure. So I took that CVM cotton silk spin that I did back in the early fall, after we got back from Knit City, Calgary, and I talked about it quite extensively on the podcast in previous episodes, like the recent ones, episode 300, episode 299, 298, and it was the 70-20-10 from Melly Knits, from my friend Melissa. I bought it from her in Calgary. It was I really wanted to have an actual sample of something that was a cotton blend, a wool cotton blend for the cotton course that we're developing for the School of Sweet Georgia over the next 6 months or so. And and I tried a couple of patterns. You guys know what ended up happening with all of that. I ended up having to rip it out. And so in the background here on my Diana is where I'm at so far. So you can see that I've done the yoke, I have actually done the sleeves, and now I'm onto the body. And the reason why I did the sleeves before I finished the body was because they are short sleeves, so they're super fast. They're a quick win. I also wanted to maximize the amount of yarn that I had for the body of the sweater. So I wanted to make sure that, because I'll have to lengthen it slightly because of my torso anyways, but I wanted to sort of maximize how much yarn I could use rather than the whole time second guessing how much I could continue and still have yarn for the sleeves. Because I'm down to this much left. about half of the second skein. So this is about 200 yards left. So that would be more than enough for the body, but I didn't want to feel concerned if I was getting toward the end of it and needed to start the ribbing. I did make one modification. The reason why Diana's not up close to us today and isn't sitting right on my shoulder here like she normally does, sometimes I feel like she's haunting me. She's like right here. Is because I actually modified the sleeves. So let's talk about yarn, the percentages and the components that make up the yarn that thus affect the structure of the fabric. I don't even know if I said that right, but bear with me. So what I did, and this is not going to cycle, this is just one image, so you can sort of examine this image as much as you want. In the original pattern, she calls for knitting the sleeve to the length that you like, or to what she calls for in the pattern. And it is a paid for pattern, so I'm not going to give all the secret sauce away. But then you do a I-cord 3 needle bind off, and you go around and use the do the I-cord. But the yarn that's called for in the original pattern is I think it's a 100% silk yarn, and it's knit at a slightly looser, slightly more open gauge, because it's a finer yarn. It doesn't have that poof that wool has. It's not going to fill in the spaces and fill in the gaps. Whereas this is a 70% wool yarn, and it's only a 10% silk yarn. And then of course there's the 20% cotton mixed in there. It's a different yarn. It feels different. The fabric is different. Everything is slightly different. And the fabric itself is slightly denser because of that wool and the way that it fills in all the spaces. So when I did the 3 needle I-cord bind off, there were two things that I didn't like about it. The first thing was it felt heavy. The second thing was it was quite bulky. It didn't matter that it took up a lot of yarn. It just felt bulky because the I-cord was really kind of standing to attention, and it was, it takes up a certain amount of space. So on hers, in the pattern, because of the type of yarn it is, it just kind of drapes and it falls really nicely, and it kind of rolls under a little bit. But I knew that even with washing and blocking, that was not going to happen with these sleeves. So I looked at the sweater, and I looked at sort of the collar, and it's a 1x1 rib, and there's a 1x1 rib, and there's a 3 needle bind off for the bottom ribbing as well for the bottom of the sweater. And again, because of that silk yarn, it's going to drape really beautifully. It's going to wash out really nicely. You're going to be able to hang it, and it's just going to drape. That's not going to happen with this. Like I said, it's that wool affecting the structure of the yarn, and therefore the structure of the fabric. So I left the 3 needle bind off I-cord on the one sleeve, but on the other one, when I got to the point where I would have needed to do the I-cord bind off, I did a 1x1 rib for 5 rows. And then on the 6th row, I just did stockinette all the way around. So I knit the purls. So I did 1 row of stockinette, and then I bound off knitwise. And what that does is, it's a technique that Isabel Kramer uses in quite a few of her patterns. It just kind of creates this slightly rolled edge at the top of the ribbing that almost kind of looks a little bit like a little tiny bit like I-cord a little bit. It just gives this really nice braided edge, and that will wash really nicely. It'll fall really nicely. It will lessen the rolling. It'll probably actually completely take care of it. And then I'll do that again on the bottom ribbing at the bottom of the sweater as well. And it's just because it's a different fiber. It's a different yarn makeup, and therefore a different fabric. So that's what I ended up doing. So for those who are curious about some of this stuff, sometimes you just have to modify the edges a little bit based on what the yarn in the pattern will do and how it will act versus your yarn that you're using for your pattern. And because so often most of us are using wool blends because we've made them ourselves, and we're hand spinning them, and we're doing them, making them ourselves, and we're substituting them in, like more often than not, we're subbing yarn, right? And so we get really good at that. And then sometimes there's this kind of assumed knowledge that we all know that some of this stuff we need to modify and change it. And that's not the case. We have to learn this somewhere. And so that's what I've ended up doing for this pattern. And once I'm finished, I'm done all the knitting and everything, and I wash and block it. If it doesn't work, I can fix it. I can change it. But I think that this will work. And I already really like what the sleeve looks like. It has a really nice look to it. And I had to modify the ranunculus slightly too, I think. I feel like I made that ribbing a little bit longer for the same reason. It just needed a little bit more space to keep it from rolling. I feel like I did that. I might be wrong. All right, that is it for today. That was lots of talking. All right, let's switch cameras and have a look at what we've got for community participation. I will just pull up all the things that I need, and I will see you guys on the other side. All right, this is fun today. We've got a whole bunch of stuff to share with you guys. So Fiber Prep, you guys are meeting every other Friday at 8 a.m. and there's been a whole bunch of Fiber Prep happening in the community. This is from Laura. I love this. These samples are fantastic. So she's been processing her, I think it's Roscommon. I think that's how you say it. I'm probably wrong, but there are some samples. So she's got a comb sample, and then there's a 3-ply sample from Flick Locks on top. So that's the one on the far right there at the very top. And then she has the comb top on the bottom. That bottom sample over there, Laura, it's over here. Nope, it's over here. On the bottom there on that top photo, that is just beautiful yarn. Both worsted spun. She felt there was quite a difference between the two of them. You know, just in looking at it quickly, it does look like the combed version is slightly more even, maybe. I might be wrong. It's just from the photo. She fell in love with the 3-ply comb top. She knit a small swatch for a sweater or a cardigan. And now she's got 2.5 kilos to process. Beautiful, Laura. This just makes my heart sing. You guys know how I feel about this type of sampling where you take it all the way through to the fabric. You had me at fabric. This is from Dania, just beautiful. This was one of the Guts clubs. It was a BFL lamb and sari silk that she carded together. Just beautiful purple. I saw this particular club. I saw it actually at Melissa's house one afternoon, and I saw the purples. And I'm not usually a big purple person. I used to love purple when I was in my teen years. I think I overdid it. I had purple furniture. Everything was purple. But I saw these on the shelf, and of course Dania processed hers herself because she's got the guts. But I just saw it at the time. I said to Melissa, they're just beautiful. This is from Mary. I'm prepping some Dorset fiber. This is the first time that I really feel like I've gotten all of the lanolin out of the fleece, which is probably a really great feeling. But now it feels a bit crunchy. Is this just a down thing, or did I mess up? So a lot of people chimed in the Slack channel about this and said that in their experience, the downs and the Dorsets do feel a bit crunchy sometimes. Maybe a little bit over scoured, maybe. I've had a couple of downs in the past that have felt really, really soft, and they could pass as fine to medium wool. I've had other ones that feel very coarse and are sort of fine, are like medium to coarse. And then I've had some that just kind of feel like downs, and they just have kind of a chalky, crunchy feeling, but they spin beautifully. So do some sampling, Mary, and see what you come up with. This is from Dion. She prepped all of these before she went on her trip to Japan. So she took a Jarn Arbin Appledore Quench, and she blended it with sparkle, some teal tussa, and some pink Southdown. One set with pink on the outside, and I'm wondering if they will spin differently. Beautiful. And she has been spinning along as she's been sharing them on her trip. This is what they look like. I'm on to my third bobbin using my travel spindle. I finished one on the plane and the other in the hotel. I'd love to finish both bags of Rolex, but I still have 4 more in the first bag, but she is planning a 4-ply sock yarn, so that'll be really fun to see that when she gets home. I don't know if it'll be plied yet, but it'll be fun to see it. All right, and then these are just the general things that you guys are sharing in the community and that you guys are doing. I love this so much, Lisa. This is her Attune shawl. This was a knit along that we did last year with Andrea Mowry. She said, I really love this shawl, but I had no idea what to do. And then everyone else's was done so fast and they were so pretty that I got a little blocked. I appreciate your honesty here, Lisa, about this. The deadline came and went, and I finally just decided to spin up the dregs of samples and leftovers from my color study year, along with other random stuff, throw in some sparkles because life isn't sad enough without sparkles, and then spun some milk protein merino from Kamaj Fiber Arts. I struggled a little with the merino milk combo. I don't think I picked the right draft, and I don't think I pre-drafted it well enough. But I did this, got the spinning done in December of last year. I left everything in singles, and it took me until last night to finish it. There's nothing wrong with that. I do like it. It's even if it's a year late. I love how this turned out. I love the white side, but I also love the color side. I think it's just beautiful. It reminds me of cotton candy. And I know Fion's is very similar. They had a similar sort of experience in terms of you know, working on it past when everyone else was. Mine took forever to get done. And I know there's others in the community that are still working on theirs as well. So beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. This is from Eve, her Hauser yarn from 2019. Now knowing that the bamboo and silk will affect the elasticity, I'm feeling better about it. We had this whole discussion after the Hauser yarn episode on the Wool Circle about elasticity and Hauser yarn and twist and bounce and all this kind of stuff. She got 150 yards, and so she's going to knit some mitts. I think those will be tough wearing mitts. My Hauser yarns that I've done in the past, they aren't necessarily particularly elastic and bouncy. I think it's more just that the fabric they create is really, it feels like commercial socks, like the fabric that you get when you feel commercial socks. That was what Felicia and I reflected on years ago, back in 2018, 2019, when I did spin to knit socks on School of Sweet Georgia. That was really what it felt like. It just felt like the fabric gave you this like commercial sock yarn kind of feel. No, not commercial sock yarn, commercial socks like that you buy in the store. That's what the fabric felt like. It has this kind of almost crunchy feel to it. I don't know how else to describe it. It has this specific type of texture with mine when it knit up. This is from Simone. She's been working on this for a while, and it was so great to see her post the final photos. Her spin for the Tetris sweater. She used Ashford Corriedale in 6 colors, turned it into Rolags, and spun long draw. She knitted it into the Tetris sweater because it's her favorite. It's in her favorite spinning book, Yarn a Texture, and that's by Jillian Moreno. Came out a number of years ago. It's still a tomb for the hand spinning world. My process got interrupted earlier in the year with a hand injury, but I completed the sweater and I love the outcome and the fit. It looks amazing, Simone. It looks great on you. This is from Susan, my first ever 3-ply yarn. It was a doozy. She ended up buying some black Corriedale to finish up the skein. I don't have a Lazy Kate set up so keeping the tension for the plying was a nightmare. Overall, though it was hard, I feel like I learned, and that's why I'm doing it. The finished skein isn't half bad either. It looks awesome, Susan. Yeah, really well done. Beautiful. I love the black running through the whole thing. That's going to make a beautiful fabric. Also from Susan, I got tired of my spinning bowl sliding off my legs, so I decided to make myself a spin cushion. This was in the most recent episode issue of Spin-Off magazine, and they were on the cover. And it's funny, I don't usually open my Spin-Off magazines right away just because life and it's busy and they kind of get put on my bedside table. And then I flip through them when I can. But I opened this one immediately because of these spin cushions. So when I saw Susan post this in the Slack channel, I was like, people are making them. So she added a little soy sauce dish to it and she loves it. Spinning is so much more relaxing. And she used a small leftover hand spun, the green, that she couldn't bear to get rid of. I love that when you can use those little bits of yarn. You know, you don't know what to do with them, but then you can throw them into little projects like this, and the colors came out beautifully. This is from Diana. Look at these blues. Oh, gorgeous. Coming off the end of the spin, merino and tweedy stuff. So much fun to play with different spindles to see the yarn each one makes. We'll post the yarn when I'm done. And I don't think I've seen the finished yarn just yet from Diana. Usually she posts it in the Slack channel under hashtag spindle spinning. What did I name that channel? because it's no longer Spindle Spun Stitches because we're done. It's just hashtag spindles. I don't think I've seen that yarn, but I might be behind on that thread just because I haven't been as present the last week or so. So I probably have missed it. And this is from Charlotte. Don't you guys just love this photo? I've started thinking I should give out like a prize for the best photo each week, because every so often there's a photo where I'm like, oh, I love this photo, Charlotte. It is so effective. Natural brown and white cotton sliver from Conserving Threads. Reminds me of caramel toffee or an Abba Zaba bar, if anyone remembers those. I don't know what those are. I'm assuming they're a chocolate bar. I was curious if I could pack 2 Schneider Turkish glider minis as full as possible with singles and then ply them onto the Schneider medium glider. It worked out with only 2 yards difference in the 2 turtles. That's incredible, Charlotte. That is also incredibly consistent spinning. Really beautifully done. Beautiful. And this is from Annie. Finally coming to the end of my spindle spin for the Attunes shawl. See, Lisa, don't feel bad. Colored skeins are the 3-ply combo spin, 2 plies Cormo Duck from Bramble Ridge, and 1-ply Targhee. And she doesn't remember the colorway. And then done on drop spindles. The other skeins are Support Spindle Spun Romney and Alpaca from Songbird Handmade. Those Bramble Ridge and Songbird Handmade are local to me. Dyers and yarn and fiber people. Just 2 more skeins to ply. Amazing, Annie. Really beautiful. Yes, Lisa said the photo is so good, but the yarn is just gloriously pretty. I agree. Yeah. Oh, okay. So Abba Zaba is peanut butter and vanilla toffee. Oh, cool. Okay. And Dania, this was a spin that she did. It was a quick little spin, 50 grams of extra fine Haunui silk and Kiviet. Amazing. The fiber was blended by the talented Lindsay of Artifacts of Appreciation. Lindsay is local to me. If you don't follow her on Instagram, she is incredibly inspiring. She's really committed to sort of the slow living movement, and she posts some really inspiring stuff. I really appreciate her perspective and how she comes at life. She was one of the people actually that I talked to after we started our kids in the current hybrid schooling type program that they're in, where it's not quite homeschooling, but it's not quite full-time brick and mortar school. She was so supportive and kind about it as a homeschooled kid herself. I had a great conversation with her after, so definitely follow her on Instagram because she's really, really inspiring. I spun this with low twist on both the singles and the ply, and I drafted with a semi-woolen draft, continuous short backward. So it's either short backward or continuous backward, not both. So continuous backward is this one, and then onto the bobbin, that's continuous backward. And then short backward is draft back, smooth, and on. So I just wanted to clarify that for people who are new to learning the drafts. They're both worsted if you're smoothing, or they're semi-worsted if you're not smoothing and you're just pinching and letting go. But it's either continuous back or short back, not both. To long draw, the yarn is extremely soft, and I love the subtle shift of color from the silk. Yes, that is so effective. Beautiful spin, Dania. Thank you so much, you guys, for sharing everything that you do, for being here, for being a part of the community. Thank you for listening to all the housekeeping at the beginning of the podcast. I know sometimes that can get a bit tedious, but it's important for everybody to know where we're at and what we're doing, because there is so much constantly happening in the community, and sometimes it's hard for me to get all of the information out to you guys and make sure that everybody's on the same page with all the same information. Otherwise, I end up repeating myself multiple times throughout the week, and that's hard too. So yeah, I appreciate you guys sticking with me at the beginning of the show. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the month. We've got the Wool Circle happening next week. And like I said, Rebecca will be introducing cabled yarns. The show afterwards, episode 303, will be I will be replaced with Rebecca, and but we will still be live streaming, same time, same place. And then the week after will be the Wool Circle again, and Rebecca will be workshopping more on cabled yarns for you guys. December always looks a little bit different for us because we tend to do sort of the monthly, we sort of wrap up the year, reflect, talk about where we're going in the new year, give you guys a chance to breathe a little bit. With American Thanksgiving and then the holiday season in December, whatever you celebrate, whatever you participate in, it tends to be sort of a hunker down and hibernate kind of a time of year. And so I hope whatever that looks like for you, that you get the rest, the time with friends and family that you need, and that you have some real blessings in your making. I will see you all in early December, and I hope that you have a really wonderful rest of your November. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else for me to say. I think I covered everything. We did really well today. So until next time, happy spinning, happy knitting, happy weaving, happy dreaming. I'll see you guys in December. Bye, everyone.